Innovation, imagination, wonder. These are just some of the words used to describe Dr. Harvey Passes. Dr. Passes explores interesting people and ideas that will stimulate you. He questions the people who develop, create, and employ novel concepts in business and everyday lives. He especially loves to speak with successful people. How did they do it? How can you do it too? So let's join Dr. Harvey Passes in his quest of wonder and curiosity as we watch Dr. Harvey Passes Presents.
So I'm going for a drive on the east end of Long Island along the beautiful North Fork. And let's see, in the car is my wife and my two kids. And the kids, as what do kids do, and they're little ones, they scream out, oh, hungry. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And we go to a restaurant on the North Fork of Long Island out in East Marion that we had heard about, and it's a legendary restaurant. And we went there, and boy, oh boy, the place was jammed. Luckily we got a table, and it was called the Hellenic Snack Bar. And one of my favorite foods, Greek. We sit down there and we're eating and enjoying, and I just can't believe it. I feel like I'm in Astoria, and yet the ambiance is far better. You're out in the country, and we're just having the time of our lives. And I want to know who the owner is. So I go over and I do my little prowling and my sniffing around, and I find out that there is a lady there, an older lady, she's probably about my age, maybe drop a little, but anyway, and her husband, and they're running the show, but that their son, George, really runs the joint, and he's not there. And being a good Greek mama, she shoves this book in my face, and she says, and I said, the food's great, I'd love to do a show on Greek cooking, it's one of my favorite cuisines, and she says, here, read the book. So I look at the book, and the next thing I know, it turns out her son wrote this fabulous book all about the region, about the culture, about the people. You're going to learn about it today. Anyway, I read the book, thought it was great, became friends with her son George, and we've had some wine together and some food together, and our families have a lot in common, and it's great. And I pleaded with him. Actually, it wasn't so difficult to plead with him to get him to come down here. And I read the book, and I said, I want to do a show on this book because it was great. It was terrific. So I want to introduce to you George Giannaris. But how do you pronounce it in Greek? Giannaris? Giannaris. Okay, we'll call you Giannaris. Okay, George, it is a pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you.
It's
Thank
a
you for having me.
pleasure. Terrific. I'm so glad that you came down here. This book, let me hold up a clean copy. This book is called Ferry Tales. No, not fairy tales, Ferry Tales. And the book is very interesting because it deals with the ferry. Now, what ferry? It deals with the life all around the North Fork and environs from the North Fork Ferry, which will take you to which places, George?
The ferry at Orient Point will take you to New London primarily.
Okay.
From there, of course, it'll take you to the rest of the country.
Take it right, and certainly New England,
Yes,
all
absolutely.
around New England.
Yes.
And also Cinderella Island.
Cinderella Island.
We'll
that's
talk
right.
about that later.
Yes.
Okay, and these are real places. So I started reading this book, and if you've watched the show, you know how crazy I am about Long Island, anything Long Island. And this gentleman here has got such great information about this restaurant that his dad created how many years ago?
32 years ago.
32 years ago. And it was a little 6-seat stool, a little snack bar by the side of a golf course or something.
Yes.
And we'll get more into that too. And this restaurant grew to become this institution of over 30 years. And he basically grew up there, even though he would spend many a time in Astoria and at times in Greece. And this book is all about the people out there. It's about your life. It's about your family. It's about Greeks. It's like Fairy Tales is your version of my big fat Greek wedding, the Fairy Tales version. And it was so wonderful, I couldn't put the book down. The writing was excellent. Your writing is engaging. The reader gets involved, gets to know your family and your world. And it was absolutely terrific. So first, let's begin, now that I've given this great preamble to the book. Okay. We already spoke about how the name Ferry Tales came about, because it's your life due to the ferry. What was the motivation for you to write this book? I mean, here you are making souvlaki and everything else, lamb, and great lamb, by the way. Why write a book? Now it says you're author.
Well, it kind of happened by accident. I had a group of people come in very late, around closing time, and they stayed till about midnight. And I decided that there were some things on my mind that I really wanted to capture, mostly for my own sake, but really primarily for my children's sake. So I went into my back office, the command center, which you've read about, and I just started typing away. And I had a good 3 or 4 chapters written within that 2.5 hour time frame that it took the customers to leave. And when I approached my mother with the stuff I had written, because a lot of that surrounded my life growing up, and she had no recollection of any of it. And it dawned on me that it would only be a matter of time
Before it was gone
from my memory. So I decided to continue to write, and I just started penning thoughts and the history of the restaurant, the evolution of the restaurant, the evolution of the North Fork region, how it had such a pivotal, dramatic effect on my life. And as I was writing page after page, and I had substantiated quite a bit of information, it dawned on me that every facet of my life was somehow, maybe obviously or inadvertently, affected by the ferry terminal down the road. It determines when I'm busy. It determines what time I close. It keeps me sustained a bit, besides the faithful local customers that we have. A lot of traffic moves through the region because of that ferry.
Absolutely.
And it also keeps me entertained. We use it a lot. We go over to New England, to Connecticut, to Vermont, skiing, that whole region. And it wouldn't have been so easy without that ferry.
Oh, it would have been a horror show for you.
A horror show, yeah.
You got to drive back in through the city.
Exactly.
Or, Queens at the very least.
4 hours to get back to where you started.
It's crazy.
It is.
That's absolutely insane. Okay, so now we understand Ferry Tales, and we understand the motivation to write a really, really interesting book on local flavor. I have a comment, and then I have a question. The question will be about your writing skills. But the comment is, yes, the book is about what we discussed, about family, about friends, about clientele, about region, about you're an avid spear fisherman,
Yes.
and other things that you did. But there's something else about this book that really caught me. This is a book about feelings. This is about you opening up your viscera and letting the world know you took a chance. You wrote things in here that are really from the heart. And it's because of that you touched me. And I'm sure other people who I've seen approach you in the restaurant say, I'm up to such and such part, and wow, it's really interesting, it's great. Because it's no baloney. It's a book about feelings, which is terrific. Now, you have a degree in engineering?
Yes, electrical engineering.
Okay, why aren't you an electrical engineer?
Well, yeah. Well, when I went into engineering, the salary was very, very lucrative, and when I graduated, we had given political asylum to Iraq. We had invaded.
From the restaurant, you gave no, go ahead.
Yeah, right. well, the government.
Right, not the restaurant.
We had. It was a Desert Storm at the time, and when the war was over, before it was over, we had given political asylum to the Middle Eastern students who had a really a good knack for the sciences. They flooded our universities, and by the time I had graduated, there really wasn't a salary in engineering. The starting salary was about $20,000. So I was at a crossroad. I watched my father, I'm an only child, no brothers or sisters, and I watched him pour his life into this business, and I watched it also get out of control because it grew quite rapidly. And I had a decision to make. I'd look at my father and he'd say, you don't have to do this for a living, but wink, wink, it would be nice if you did this for a living.
Right.
I also liked the freedom it gave me. In the winter, we're slow, so I had a lot of time off. So I chose to pursue my career in the restaurant business instead of as an electrical engineer.